I've been wanting to make my own custom biscuit cutters for a while now. These ones are just a bit too plain, unexciting. They're taken for granted. You can get all sorts of interesting different shapes off the internet, but I think it's nice to be able to get exactly what you want. I didn't really know what I wanted from a biscuit cutter, but I wanted to try making some anyway, to see how they'd turn out. And just in case I decided on something I actually wanted one day, I'd know how to create one quickly. So I just doodled some ideas for a bit until I was satisfied. And at this point, my computer was hijacked by a little person who put down a few more ideas. Sadly, I think the cherry will be too delicate as a cookie, but the others can be turned into biscuit cutters. So we ended up with the loving pussycat, the hangry biscuit, a happy heart, and something my daughter named Squareface. No cherry, and I'm not doing the meow speech bubble. These drawings were fine, but to make them into images I could actually use for my 3D model, the lines needed to be well defined and thicker. So I drew over the lines with a thick black brush. The thickness of these lines will determine how thick the actual cutter walls will be. If they're too chunky, you won't get a nice clean cutout of your dough. So I chose a brush thickness that would give a wall thickness of less than 1 millimeter. The outline of the biscuit cutters is drawn on a different layer to the details on the inside of the cookies, which is going to make things easier later. Then on another layer, we need something that can hold the outline and details together. This would be the back of the cutter. I could just fill them in to get a big black silhouette of the images, but I don't think that would work out well practically. Sometimes dough gets stuck in biscuit cutters, and you want to be able to get the cut dough out without destroying the shape. So here's how I made the support layer. It joins the details to the edge of the cutter, with enough support that pushing on the center won't cause the cutter to bend too much or break. It provides enough holes to make poking the biscuits out of the cutters easy if they get stuck, and also makes for easier cleaning. Now, how do you turn these 3 image layers into an actual 3D model of a cutter? Well, Blender allows users to import SVG files and convert them into a mesh, which is what I'll be doing. Right now, these images are all on raster layers, so we need to convert them to vector layers. This is pretty easy. Just select the opaque parts of the image, like this. Convert the selection to a shape. My shape is white, so you can't see it. So I'm going to change the color of the shape and the outline of the shape to black. Then export the vector layer as an SVG file. So for each cutter you will have 3 images, one for the outline, one for the details, and one for the support layer. We can then import each of these SVG files into Blender. Make sure they're lined up properly, then convert each of them to a mesh and scale them up. I made these about 5 centimeters wide. The next decision that needs making is how thick your biscuits will be. I decided I would make biscuits that would be 4 millimeters thick, and I wanted the details to be indented into the biscuit about 2 millimeters deep. When cutting into dough, you don't want the dough to reach the top of the cutter. You tend to want a bit of room, otherwise your fingers might press into the surface of your freshly cut biscuit. So here are the final measurements that I decided on. The support layer would be 1 millimeter thick. The outline of the cutter would be 10 millimeters deep, and the details would be 8 millimeters deep. So it would look like this. With all the cutters modeled, I printed them out in PLA filament. Each one took an hour to print. Here's what they look like. I briefly blasted each one with a hot air gun to get rid of the fine strands of PLA. The blasting with hot air has to be done quickly and carefully, as the walls of these cutters are so thin you could easily cause them to warp with too much heat. Now for the ultimate test. It's time to make some biscuits. You can't just choose any old biscuit or cookie recipe. You want the dough to spread and rise as little as possible during baking. otherwise all the details will be lost. So I picked out a sugar cookie recipe which promised to keep its shape. This specific recipe was from cakesbylinds.co.uk. I also printed out these long things which helped to ensure the dough was 4 mm thick when rolled. There were successes and failures. But there were more successes and failures. After a quick bake in the oven, here they are. They kept their shapes nicely and all the details remained clearly visible. And they were so tasty they all lasted fewer than 30 minutes.